Check the mic, we're going live. Stories told, they rise and dive. Topics fresh with every spin. You won't guess what's coming in. Every week a new surprise. Minds awake, never lies. Conversations bold and free. Tune in now, just wait and see. This podcast is uncalled for. Catch us here, there's so much more. Laughs and tales you can't ignore. A journey that will leave you floored. In the night or in the day, just press.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. Go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Amanda Stacey. I'm an indie author out of Southwest Missouri.
All right. Glad you could join us on the podcast today. So, first off, how are the roads down there?
They're icy. We got more ice than we got snow. we got a lot of rain yesterday, and then it snowed in the afternoon.
Right.
So, not going anywhere for sure.
Yeah. Neither am I. I'm in Kansas City. We had we had all of our ice on Saturday. You probably saw the clips of trucks and cars just slipping and sliding all over the streets. I'm lucky I got home on Saturday evening, and then we got all the snow yesterday, and we currently have 10 inches of snow where I am, and no one has plowed my street. So
my street's usually one of the last to get plowed, but
yeah.
I got to be safe from panic shopping. I was like, I don't need bread, milk, and eggs. Like, I'm good on those things.
Right. I did manage to buy a few things before going into work on the Saturday. So yay. All right. So yeah, writing. Let's jump right into it. You do science fiction writing, if I'm not.
Well, I had seen that you said that you were a big sci-fi guy.
Mm-hmm.
My book is in fantasy, but I feel like there's a lot of crossover between sci-fi and fantasy anyways.
Yep.
So like I was really big into Star Trek and Star Trek Next Generation, and like the amount of fantasy that's actually in those shows is kind of astounding. So
yeah. Yeah, that's my big franchise is Star Trek. So and TOS and TNG were my intro into it.
We had all the VHSs of like the first and maybe part of the second season of Star Trek Next Generation. So I used to watch the VHSs, and we had the box set of the Star Trek movies.
Right.
But because I've always kind of been one of those people, I will read almost anything. Like I'll give anything a shot. But when I really decided that I wanted to write, my inspiration kind of came from social media. And at that time, there were a lot of things about the mythological woman Lilith. And like everything that I would see about her on social media, I was like, it kind of grinded my gears because I was like, this sounds like a story that like a guy that's been burned by a girl like would tell. And so I was like, I want to rewrite it kind of from a female perspective instead of the male perspective. And then it ended up being, instead of an origin story, it ended up being kind of a dual timeline story. So it was where she came from and where she is now.
All right. Yeah. That's one of the big critiques of the Bible is it was mostly written by men.
Yeah. I tend to, because I was raised in the church and stuff, but now that I'm an adult and like I've done more studying, which I think that's so important for people, especially if you grew up in the church, like really do studying that was outside of like your church.
Right.
And it's like, how much did we not get told because maybe like a woman was like the hero of the story, or like maybe the guy was worse than was portrayed, and it's like I just have questions.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. Um, yeah. We get all sorts of different takes on the Bible and everything, and different takes on how Christianity should be practiced and all that. I grew up Catholic and was LDS for
Oh wow.
time, and uh, so
Yeah,
yeah.
I was raised in a like a one of the really classic Christian, like, first Christian church of this town type
Hmm.
situation. So the real patriarchal evangelical stuff, and then I kind of, I really, as I got older, I started kind of hating the message that I had been pushed my whole childhood.
Right.
So whenever I got married, my husband, he was Catholic and he was wanting to go back to church. And I was like, I couldn't care less which one we go to. So I was like, sure, let's try Catholic. And I was like, this is surprisingly similar, but it's just more, I felt like the Catholic Church was more, they kind of have like a set way of doing things, and it's
Hmm.
very, kind of traditional, I would say.
I would agree there, and lots of well, I don't know how big of a fan you are of South Park, but there was a running joke in that show where the priest in South Park was the only one not molesting his altar boys. So
I think I remember that.
yeah, one of my favorites. One thing that really bugs me about uh, Christianity as taught in the church, especially the evangelical take on it, and the Mormons kind of shared this uh, as well. They think Jesus would be okay with what's going on in our country today, with uh,
Oh,
the poor being ignored and everything, and all this talk that oh, Jesus was a conservative. No, he wasn't.
yeah, that's it's such a big pet peeve of mine. Like the guns Jesus babies thing.
Hmm.
I live you're in Kansas City. I'm in Southwest Missouri. I am in
Yeah,
like
you're
the
just
red
down the street from me.
of
Yeah,
the
so,
state. And my gosh, like people really believe that he like picked, you know, certain people to like save us. And I was like, that's blasphemous, first off.
yeah.
Like, no man can save you. That's what they used to teach, at least.
Hmm.
And it really, I was like, there was no such thing as the USA. Like when Jesus was alive,
Right.
he was in the Middle East, which so the chances of him being white were slim to none.
Hmm.
Like, and there was no such thing as Republican and Democrat. I was like, he
Right.
does not support a party. In fact, he'd be anti this. Like, he'd be anti the whole system because none
Hmm.
of it's for helping the needy or the poor or the immigrants. Like,
Hmm.
it baffles me the people that full-heartedly believe. And my mom, she actually got ousted from her church because she was going to a Christian church. And after the election, they were praising God before communion for how the election turned out. And she couldn't take it. She stood up. She's like, oh, no, 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 this is wrong. To my brethren, the least you have done
Hmm.
unto these, you have done unto me. And she walked out, and she got a certified letter in the mail telling her not to come back until she apologized to the guy that was running the pre-communion stuff. Like, she had to apologize to him, and she had to do counseling with one of the like members of the church to
Hmm.
sort through any mental issues she was having. And she was like, I'm never going back there.
Well, good for
It
her.
was,
Good for her. Because
yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's another thing that really has me baffled. Uh, any reasonable person who's read the about, particularly the parts with Jesus, would say, okay, yeah, this guy Donnie, yeah, he's the temple, he's the money changers in the temple. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so,
Yeah.
yeah, Jesus would not be in favor of that guy in particular. And let's not forget all the all his sins, if you will, before even going into office in the first place. Never mind all the laws he broke while in office or preparing to go into office, including um, money laundering with which yeah, 34 felony
Yeah. 34 felony counts.
convictions. Convictions, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and never mind, he fomented a terrorist attack 4 years ago today on our nation's capital.
Oh yeah, it is January 6th today, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It is. Yeah, it's hard kind of because I was kind of a blue dot, a little blue droplet in like the
Hmm.
sea of red, and I tell you that week after the election was kind of rough because you had a bunch of people around you slapping each other's backs, and I told my mom because she used to be a conservative. She was a conservative Republican my entire
Hmm.
life until about 6 years ago. And then she realized she was getting left behind in the party.
Yep.
And I told her, I said, because in Missouri, the abortion issue was on the ballot, the women's health was, and that got passed. And I said, this tells me that it was never about abortion
Hmm.
because no, I did not see one single conservative person boo-hooing that abortion passed in Missouri. Not one person was like,
Hmm.
"Oh no, like the babies." No, they were like, "Yay, Trump." Like so I was like, "You didn't care."
Yeah.
Like it showed it was never about it. It was never about the women's rights. And it's unfortunate because
Yeah.
a lot of people are starting to feel left behind and it's uh, one of the things like I'm almost concerned about because like in what I wrote a very strong woman and she's never been married, that kind of
Hmm.
thing. And I was like, the things I wrote could probably get my book canceled in like a crappy version of American Future. I
Right.
was like, that'd be awful, but oh well. I wrote it how I wanted it and I'm just gonna be at peace with that.
All right. Yeah. Uh, good deal. That I guess that's the way I should approach this podcast. Is I've gone after Donnie quite a few times on the podcast already. Um, but abortion, yeah, that I live on the Kansas side of the state line,
Live on the
and
Kansas side of the line.
yeah, and right after Roe was taken down, abortion was on the ballot here, and abortion got it's protected in Kansas.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's supposed to be protected in Missouri now too,
yeah,
but we'll
I
see.
heard about that. Yeah, congratulations there, but we'll have to wait and see. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, it's kind of a crazy time to be alive. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? We're just seeing so much drastic change happen really quickly. And I'm glad we got that one passed because we had so many bad trigger laws that went into effect
Hmm.
when Roe got overturned.
Right.
And and they were trying to do away with the no fault like some of the Missouri lawmakers were trying to do away with the
Hmm.
no fault divorce. I was like, so you can't get divorced if you're pregnant. You want to take abortion away and you want to do away with no fault divorce. It's like trap desperate
Hmm.
people forever.
Right.
Like I was like, oh my gosh. It felt like a predator's dream and like everybody else's nightmare.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. My parents divorced when I was 12, and who who knows how that would have gone had they not divorced? You know. Uh,
Mine divorced when I was an infant. I was a baby. So
hmm.
I like my dad was never in the picture. But like I know enough about him to know that my life probably would have been worse off if he
Yeah.
had been.
I
So
yeah, absolutely. My dad's still alive, and uh, my mom passed away a few years ago, and that's and yeah, I definitely see it with my dad. And if he had raised me, I'd probably if he had done more to raise me, I probably would have been in a much worse situation, I think. And so yeah, having
you
never
you
been married myself, I I can't speak to how that would be how that would have affected me or any potential children from that point of view because I've never been through that process myself. More because of bad luck than anything, and all that. So yeah, we should probably talk about your book a little bit.
can. It's easy to talk about a lot of stuff with so much stuff going on.
Yeah.
Um, but my book is called Born Out of Darkness, by me, Amanda Stacey, and it is about the like I said, I kind of came across her on TikTok, with the mythological Lilith. And the more I researched her, she was just like the boogie woman of like the beginning of time.
Hmm.
um, and her original story was that she wouldn't be submissive to Adam and like in bed and stuff. And I was like, ugh. Like, first off, like for that to be your legacy. Like, I was like, this is just not how I would picture it. And so I kind of reimagined it. And like I said, it's a dual timeline book. So you get to see her history as well as where she is now. Um, and so for me, I wrote the book because I was trying to find my purpose in life. I was a stay-at-home mom, and my identity had become mom. And I was actually really falling into depression because of it. I felt invisible, and I just didn't know who I was anymore. All sense of self was gone. And when I finally decided to start writing, because it'd always been a passion of mine, I really found out I liked it.
Hmm.
And I was able to crank out this book in 6 months, and then 6 months for like editing and other stuff like that. But
Right.
it it's about a strong like woman, and she's literally been around since before time existed. And she was the first woman in this book. Take it how you will. It's complete fiction. So
Hmm.
I went at it from like growing up Christian. I understand this is fiction. Like, I'm not trying to say this is how it was. Um, but yeah, it's kind of the her past kind of explains why she is the way she is now, and her current timeline. She kind of finds this girl. She's monster hunting. If you're immortal and can do whatever you want, why would you monster hunt?
Hmm.
And she finds this girl, and they end up kind of being friends, and they kind of get stuck together for a while. And it's kind of a story about her fighting her inner darkness while she's trying to help someone. And that person is directly bringing her inner darkness out, I
Hmm.
guess you could say. But yeah, and I'm working on a second one. But after I finished the book, I when I 1 month away from publishing, I found out I was pregnant with another kid,
Hmm.
and like all my creativity like drained out of me. And so I just kind of had to put a pause on writing. And once I was kind of out of the sleep deprivation part of babyhood, I
Hmm.
went back to writing. But I'm working on it.
All right.
It just takes time, but
Yes, it does. It really
uh,
does. Yeah. So.
I kind of had fun with it. And for like your mythology and sci-fi people, um, I literally threw like everyone in that I wanted to. There are vampires, there are werewolves.
Hmm.
Lucifer plays a pretty big part. I got like Galahad the Knight and Merlin the Wizard in there, and it's kind of a fun like just different cameos from mythology because
Hmm.
I love
That sounds a lot like. Are you into board gaming at all?
it. Not particularly.
Okay, so because this does sound a lot like the premise behind my favorite board game, which is Smash Up, where you take two different decks. One could be vampires, one could be werewolves, one could be the Knights of the Round Table, and just put them together and you see, well, which pairings will do best against which other pairings and
Oh, that sounds fun.
everything. Yeah.
Does kind of sound like that's what I did. I did it in book form.
Yeah. So yeah, a book form version of that game. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, next thing you know, you'll be writing Cthulhu into the thing. And he is public domain, folks. So you could do it. You could do it if you wanted to.
I could.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess we could we have we do have a few more minutes left. We could touch yeah, going back to Star Trek. Did you ever get into any of the other series like DS9, Voyager, any of the newer stuff? Or
I was one of those people. I always went back. I could have watched the newer stuff, but I always went back to my comfort of like the older ones. I don't know
hmm
why. I just love them so much. Both the original Star Trek and the Star Trek Next Generation, they were just like my favorite.
hmm
I think just because I grew up with them, but it's hard to let go of those.
right. I think yeah, with Voyager especially because woman captain.
Yeah,
Right.
I think I've seen it on one of my streaming platforms, and I just never actually
hmm
took the plunge to watch it.
You should. There's also a great podcast. It's called the Delta Flyers, and that's two Voyager cast members going back and rewatching all of Voyager and
Oh my
talking
gosh.
about it. Yeah. So,
I a non-related one I really got into was the Stargate one. That one
hmm
was I loved that show because I never actually saw it when it came out. I had seen the Stargate movie,
right.
and then like we kind of stumbled across it scrolling for what to watch next, and I found Stargate 1, and
hmm
that show, my mind was like, this show's amazing. Aliens and all kinds of star portals.
Yeah.
But like
And
all my family's into like the fantasy and the
hmm
science fiction. So
Yeah.
I'm into everything from like Lord of the Rings and Chronicles of Narnia to,
hmm
like I said, Star Trek, Stargate. uh Firefly was one I watched with them.
Yes. Yeah.
That was a
Yeah.
good one.
Firefly
I'm
was
so
great.
sad they didn't make more of that.
Yeah. Too short lived, but yeah, great stuff. Yes.
It
Yep.
was.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for taking some time out of this interesting day, shall we say? And
Well, when the Earth decides to just drop a pound, a foot of snow on you, it does make things interesting.
right, all right. Well, thanks for your time, and look forward to talking soon. Too.
All right, thanks.
This podcast is Uncalled For. It's hosted, produced, and edited by myself, Mike Chernevsky. The opening music is the This Podcast is Uncalled For theme, created at suno.com, suno.com. The outro music for this and every episode in our Snowed In 2025 series is Snow Ticket by PC3. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution License. You can find this at freemusicarchive.org.
Please support the podcast and purchase our exclusive Uncalled For merchandise. T-shirts, sweatshirts, mugs, stickers, and so much more. Go to www.cafepress.com/uncalledforpod. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time.